If you buy a home in Florida, you are almost certainly signing something called an as-is residential contract for sale and purchase. It looks boring, but buried inside it are mechanisms that can either save you thousands of dollars or quietly destroy your deal. The clauses that can shift power, the loopholes people don't notice, and the small mistakes that can cost you real money. Most transactions begin with the as-is contract, and when people hear as-is, they assume it means buyer beware. That if the house falls apart tomorrow, that's your problem. And that's mostly true, but here's where people get it wrong. As-is doesn't mean that the sellers can just hide things. If a seller knows about a defect that materially affects the value of the property and it's not readily observable and they don't say anything, as-is won't protect them because that's fraud. But the real power in this contract doesn't belong to the seller. It belongs to the buyer. It's called the inspection period. By default, buyers usually get around 5 to 15 days, and this will be a buyer's free look. During that time, you can inspect a property completely from head to toe, and if you decide for any reason at all that you don't like it, you can walk away. The contract literally says, and I quote, in the buyer's sole discretion. So you don't need proof, you don't need leverage, you don't even need a reason. You can decide you just don't like the vibes. You can terminate the contract and you can get your deposit back and you disappear and you move on to the next. That's the first escape hatch, but I call this the invisible fuse because this is what usually happens. An agent submits an offer with a 24 to 36 hour acceptance window. Then the negotiation begins. Price changes, credits get added, terms are adjusted, everyone goes back and forth, but no one thinks to update the acceptance date. So when everyone finally signs, it's after the deadline. And you might be thinking, okay, so what? What does this mean? Well, it means that the contract is technically null and void. If someone wants to back out of the deal, even the day of the closing, this is their loophole. This is one unchecked line that can kill a transaction completely and or cost a client thousands of dollars and tons of time. Next, let's talk about bidding wars. When the market heats up and multiple buyers want the same house, things can get really aggressive. And this is where escalation clauses come in. An escalation clause is automated bidding. Let's say you want to offer $550,000, but you can add language that says you'll beat any other bona fide offer by $1,000 up to $600,000. You're telling the seller, I have more money and I'm willing to use it. But there's a catch. You're also showing your hand. You're telling the seller exactly how much you can afford. And a smart seller might just reject the escalation clause entirely and counter you at your maximum price. You try to be clever, and instead you negotiate it against yourself. Now let's talk about the kickout clause. This one can be ruthless and very handy at the same time. Let's say your offer to buy a house is contingent on maybe you selling your current house first. The seller accepts your offer, but they keep the listing active. And why? Because they're still looking for a better buyer. And if that better buyer or second buyer comes along with a better offer, maybe it's all cash, maybe has no sale contingencies, the seller can then trigger the kickout clause. You'll get notified, and then you'll usually have about 72 hours to make a decision. You'll have 3 days to either remove your contingencies or walk away. If you can't, you're out. The contract is dead, the new buyer gets the house. Now let's talk about a mistake that sounds small, but it hits hard. It's appliances. On the first page of the as-is contract, there's a list of what stays with the house. That's the refrigerator, the range, the dishwasher. But guess what's not included by default? The washer and dryer. And I learned this the hard way. When I was a rookie real estate agent representing a buyer, we went to the final walkthrough and the washer and dryer were gone. I called the listing agent and he told me it wasn't included in the sale. And he said, and I quote, know your contracts. And he was right. I didn't like it, but he was right. And what happened? I ended up buying my clients a brand new set. I wasn't legally obligated to do so, but it was the right thing to do because I should have known better. So to fix this, it's pretty simple. You just add one sentence in the contract and it goes something like this. All attached appliances and fixtures, including the washer and dryer and hurricane shutters if applicable, and if they are present during the showing, come with the property. One sentence, thousands of dollars saved. Now let's talk about the next problem, and that is permits. When you close on a property, a title company steps in. Their job is to clear liens, pull surveys, pull estoppels, clean up any home ownership issues. But permits, well, closing out permits is not required by default in an as-is contract in Florida. That means you can buy a house with open, expired, or inactive permits and inherit the problem. It can delay a resale, it can kill your future deals, or it can force you to pay to fix for work that you didn't authorize. Because of this, if you're representing the buyer or you're by yourself, make sure you add in the following language. It goes like this. All parties agree that the sellers will close any and all open, inactive, or expired permits related to this property prior to closing at the seller's sole cost and expense. If it's not written, it's not happening, so make sure you put that in. Finally, let's talk about title. In Palm Beach County, it's customary for the sellers to choose the title company and pay for the owner's title policy. In Broward County, the buyers often do. But just because it's custom, it doesn't mean it's required. It is still negotiable. And depending on the deal, choosing the right option could save you or your clients thousands of dollars. For context, a typical Florida title policy costs about $2,075 on a $400,000 sale, or $3,575 on a $700,000 sale, and over $5,000 on a $1 million property. Someone will pay for that, and it doesn't have to be you or your client. A title policy protects buyers after closing if there are errors or defects that nobody caught. And if you're using a mortgage, lenders also require a separate lender's title policy, which the buyers usually pay and see disclosed in their loan estimates. This is required to sell, but who pays is strategy. So real estate contracts aren't just paperwork. They're rules for a high-stake game and one of the biggest investments or sale of your entire life. If you miss an acceptance date, the deal can die. You forget the washer and dryer, you're gonna buy new ones. You ignore permits, you might inherit a legal mess. You choose the wrong title option, you could overpay. In Florida, when you buy or sell a house, it's not overly complicated. That's if you are reading the instructions properly. And if you think about moving to or from Southeast Florida and you want someone like me to represent you so these things don't happen to you, well, reach out to me. My information is on the screen somewhere below.